How's it going, everybody? Today I wanted to go over how I would train full body past your novice or newbie gains. And I want to tell you up front that I currently do not train full body, so this is just my perspective if I were to start full body again. I did, however, train full body for the majority of my time as a beginner lifter, and I think it's a great place to start, but it obviously has its limitations as you progress. So I'm assuming if you're looking to do full body and you've been training consistently for at least a year, it is mostly due to you not being able to go to the gym very many times per week. If you are able to go to the gym 4 more days per week, then it really just makes sense to start splitting some things up. So these principles will revolve around someone who is able to go to the gym 2 to 3 days per week. So to start, I would create two workouts. Let's say workout A and then workout B. I would still like to split upper and lower during the workout, so one workout will start with training upper and the other one will start with training lower. The reason I would separate them is because I still want to keep blood in the localized area. I feel, at least for myself, there is some benefit of keeping the pump in the area you're currently training. Not that the pump drives growth, but if you have a pump, then those muscles are working, and training muscles in their fatigue state will drive growth. I feel that if I just jumped from doing my chest to my quads, then to my biceps, for example, my sets won't be as high of a quality with enough stimulus as they could be because a lot of time has passed. And you hit another area of the body where it might have time to cool down, and for me, I would feel like I'd have to re-warm up that area of the body again. As for exercise selection, I would include the best exercises that work for me for that particular muscle group. I will figure out my total weekly volume for that muscle group and still hit that target. So your number of sets per session will look different if you're training twice a week versus 3 times a week. Once I hit 3 sets for a lift, I would add another lift to get more sets. What I would do is run 2 lifts at 2 sets each, which would total 4 sets. So if I have a weekly volume of 8 sets for triceps and I'm training twice per week, each session would have 4 sets with 2 different lifts. If I was running 3 times per week, I would run 3 sets, then 3 sets, then 2 sets to total 8 sets for the week. Or depending on the muscle group, I might just make that 3 sets all the way across, so it'd just be 3. And basically it would just depend on if this was a priority muscle group or not. You can just tack it on if you wanted to. As for rep ranges, I would pick lower end rep ranges for whichever section of the body I'm performing first. So if I'm doing lower first, I will pick a lower rep range for those lifts. Then in the same session, my upper lifts will be at a higher end of my rep ranges. Then on the day I perform upper first, those lifts will have the lower rep ranges compared to the other session, and the lower lifts, which would be after the upper lifts, would have a higher rep range compared to the other session. Essentially, you are alternating with the first group being lower rep ranges and the second group is being higher rep ranges, and they're alternating both workouts. The reason for this is so I can have the most energy to perform heavy lifts. Because of the lower rep ranges, they will naturally be heavier. This doesn't mean just compounds first. You could be doing a barbell curl first, but performing in the 4 to 6 rep range, making it a heavier lift than your, let's say, incline press that you're doing for 10 to 12 reps. You can decide which rep ranges you like, but generally for lower rep ranges I'll do 4 to 7 reps, and for higher rep ranges I'll do 8 to 12 reps, or it could be higher. For progression, first and foremost, you need to be tracking your training. If you're not tracking your training, you will not be able to accurately determine your progress, thus leaving you not knowing how to progress. Since this will be a longer session than what I'd be used to, so this is just my scenario. If I were to switch to full body, I would not be used to that long of a session. I would personally start everything off at 2 sets for the first week. After that, I will add sets accordingly to how I felt after my sessions. This is to determine the right volume I would need. For weight, I will pick weights that cause me to come close to failing or failing in my rep range for that lift. And then once I can perform the top end of rep ranges across all sets, then I will bump up the weight. Simple double progression is what I find to be the most effective. This allows me to keep my intensity high and have the freedom to train within a rep range, so I'm not tempted to hold back because I've hit the target number, or if I'm feeling off, I can still train within the rep range and just use a lower weight. As for the number of different lifts, I would have between 1 to 3 lifts, depending on the muscle group, the number of sets per session, and the number of sessions per week. And before I rotate a lift out, I would have wanted to train it through multiple rep ranges first. So you should take a lift from 4 reps to 12 reps or higher before you swap it out. I'd also recommend experimenting with training certain lifts before others, meaning if you always train something last, switch to training it first. And since you've created 2 workouts, you will just alternate them. So if you were doing 3 sessions per week, one workout will be performed twice and the other once. Then the next week, it just switches. And if you can do a 3rd day, you also have the option to make it more focused on areas you want to bring up. For example, if I were trying to bring up my arms, that 3rd day, I would hit triceps and biceps first, and with the volume I need for growth to occur. What I mean by volume I need for growth to occur is that that's something that I have predetermined, that I know how many sets I need for that muscle group and how hard to push it for it to grow from that session. So you're looking at it from a session perspective of volume and intensity, not necessarily a weekly volume. It's because it's almost a specialized day. You're doing more. The point is you're really overloading that muscle. So that's why I would look at it in terms of what do I need that day for myself to get a good stimulus for growth to occur. So, and then after I hit my triceps and biceps, I will then hit the rest of my body with less volume than normal, as if I were to just maintain the muscle. The reason for this is because your primary goal would be your biceps and triceps on this particular day. However, you can still get in some volume for your whole body, which will still impact your whole body volume when you look at the total for the week. It's just that this day you're biasing extra volume for your arms, if that's what you were choosing to do. Now, one struggle you may run into is feeling completely shot halfway through your session. Sessions will be longer. It is something your body will have to just adapt to, just like anything else. It might be beneficial to take a 5-minute break as you transition from upper to lower, or vice versa, whichever order you were doing it in. This is why it works out if you split upper and lower within the session, because let's say you train upper and you're tired, you can just take a quick break, come back more refreshed to then start lower. And the reason that makes sense is because if you had upper movements in the beginning of your session and then later in your session and you took that break, you would have to re-warm up again. but because you did upper first, you took a break. Well, you had to warm up lower anyways before you started, so it kind of works out. It will take time and multiple long sessions before you may feel used to it, but that's just the trade-off of doing full body. Just like with all areas of training, you will eventually build up the work capacity to complete solid workouts. I remember doing it for a while before I switched to an upper lower split, and it's something that will take a good 2 months maybe before you're fully in sync with it, but it's definitely possible, and it's something that you could maintain for a long time if you really wanted to, because once your body adapts to it, it's set and it's in its way, and it feels just like any other workout, believe it or not. Even though you're still doing a 2 to 3 hour workout, it's just something your body just got used to doing, and it actually gets better at doing it the longer you do it. So to highlight some of the key points, create 2 or 3 workouts depending on your situation. Start volume on the lower side and build up to it. This is just definitely important so you don't burn out in the beginning and just say, oh, full body. It's just too hard, it's just too much volume. It's just impossible. I can't hit anything with the same intensity, and it's just not as good of quality. Well, you got to start low in the volume. Just suck it up. You're not going to get great stimuluses or whatever for the first week or two, and you're not going to grow most likely, but that's fine. Just start low and build up to it. Separate sessions between upper and lower, and take a short break between the two if you need to. A session that goes lower, then lower lifts will have lower rep ranges, upper lifts will have higher rep ranges, and vice versa. Allow lifts to rotate through rep ranges in sequence within a session before you rotate it out. This is definitely important. I think too many people change up the lifts way too quickly. They'll run a lift for a month and just switch it out. And they did it for one rep range of 8 to 10 reps, and that's it. And they're using the same weight the whole time. Maybe they added a little bit of weight. And they always did it in the same order. It was always the first exercise, or it was always the third. You should be going from as low as 4 reps to as high as 15 reps, and maybe even higher for some specific lifts. And you should be training it later in the session, and you should be training it early in the session. And that one lift should last you a year. You should be running a lift for a year, unless it has specific problems or it's just you're really not connecting with it, which I don't really believe is the case a lot of time. It's just your technique is off. You're not willing to maybe do some extra mobility or something to get the technique right. But allowing lifts to rotate sequence within the session and through the rep ranges is a huge thing that I think if people just stuck with a lift long enough, they will see the gains from it. They will see all the rewards. It's like you have to do the lift for a number of times before you start really seeing the results that it will give you. So don't just jump off a lift too quick. That's my point. And then if you need more than 3 sets per muscle group, add a lift and do 2 sets with both lifts. That's just something I've been doing recently, and I feel like after 3 sets, I just feel like it just becomes too redundant. I almost need to change up the movement pattern just slightly, and it's a way to almost refresh yourself. Even though you're using the same muscle, it's just a slightly different movement pattern in a different way. So it just, for me, that's what I like. And mentally knowing that if you had to do 4 sets of the same lift, that can be mentally tiring. So splitting up between 2 lifts helps me mentally. And finally, a third day, if you can afford a third day, could be a specialized day if you want it to be. So that's all I really had for today. That was a lot of information really quickly, but that's how I would going about full body past your beginner gains. And I think it's something, maybe I do really like full body, and it's something I kind of wouldn't mind going back to. But currently I'm doing the upper lower, and it's working great, and I I don't really want to change it, but I think sometime in the future I would like to do full body, but make it pretty much using what the advice I just said and see how it works out. But that's all I had for today. So I'll see you in the next one.